Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyofbaking.com. Today we're going to make red velvet cupcakes, and then we're going to cover them with lovely swirls of cream cheese frosting. This cupcake has a really nice mild chocolate flavor and a moist and tender crumb. So first, preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 180 degrees Celsius, and then either line a 12-cup muffin pan with paper liners, or what I've done here is I'm just using freestanding muffin cups. And then, first thing we need to do is to mix the dry ingredients together. Now you need 1 1/4 cups, that's 125 grams of sifted cake flour. Now that means you sift the cake flour first and then measure it. And then to that, I'm going to just sift over top 1 tablespoon of unsweetened cocoa powder. Now you can use the regular unsweetened or the Dutch process, whichever one you want. And I'm sifting that because a lot of times cocoa powder can have lumps. So that, and then to that I'm going to add 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Let's get that salt out of there. And then you could sift this together, or I'm just using a wire whisk, and just want to make sure all the ingredients are all mixed together. Okay, that's done. And then take 1/2 cup, that's 120 milliliters of buttermilk. And then what I'm going to do is add in 1 tablespoon of liquid red food coloring. And be careful with this because it will stain. And you can buy the liquid red food coloring in these small bottles, and then just stir that together. Now that's what gives us that really bright red color that the red velvet cupcakes are known for. But like I said, be careful with this because it will stain your clothes, the counter. So that's done. Now, if you have a stand mixer like this, use the paddle attachment, or you could just use an electric hand mixer. So what I'm going to do is put 1/4 cup, that's 57 grams of butter. I like to use unsalted, but you can use salted if you want, and just have that at room temperature. And I'm just going to beat this on medium, high speed until it's creamy and smooth. Okay, scrape down the sides. Now I'm going to add 3/4 cup, that's 150 grams of granulated white sugar. And then we're just going to beat this until it's nice and light and fluffy, like maybe a couple minutes on medium-high speed. And now just add 1 large egg and have that at room temperature, as well as 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And try to use the pure vanilla extract. It's better flavor than the artificial ones. And just beat that in. Down the sides. And now we're going to add the dry ingredients alternately with the wet ingredients. So first I'm going to add about 1/3 of the flour mixture. Just beat that in. Scrape down the sides as you need to. And then add about 1/4 cup of the buttermilk. I like to have a paper towel just in case there's any drips, because you don't want that red liquid to stain your counter. And then just have this on low speed because to mix the liquid in. And add a little more of the dry. And then the rest of the wet ingredients. Scrape down as you need to. As you can see, this is really starting to turn red. And finally, the rest of the dry ingredients. Okay. Just going to give this a quick stir. So as you can see, this is really red. And it has a very mild chocolate flavor because as you notice, we only added 1 tablespoon of cocoa powder. This is really like a butter cake with just a slight chocolate flavor. So the final step is to take 1/2 teaspoon of vinegar, just plain vinegar, and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And I'm going to mix the baking soda into the vinegar, and that's going to fizz up. And that's going to, not only as the baking soda is a leavener and it helps the cupcakes to rise, but what it also does is give you that light, airy, nice texture to your cake. So we got to work very quickly because once the baking soda starts to react, we want to get it into the batter and then quickly get our cupcakes into the oven. So just kind of empty that in. As you can see, fizzes up. Just make sure it's all stirred in. Add that to your batter. And just quickly stir that in. We did add a little baking powder as well to help with the leavening with these cupcakes. So that's that. Now, you can use either spoons or I'm using an ice cream scoop. Just evenly divide your batter amongst your cupcakes, liners. Okay, so into the oven between 18-20 minutes or until a toothpick inserted into the center comes out clean. So our red velvet cupcakes are now done. You want to bake them just until a toothpick inserted in the center of one comes out clean. So just leave them to cool completely on the wire rack, and then we'll start the cream cheese frosting. So now we'll make our cream cheese frosting. If you have an electric stand mixer like this, use the paddle attachment, or you could just use a hand mixer. First take 8 ounces, that's 227 grams of cream cheese, and have that at room temperature. And then I'm just going to beat this until it's nice and creamy and smooth. Okay, scrape down sides. You want it at room temperature so that way it gets nice and smooth because we don't want any lumps in our frosting. And then to that I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and try to use the pure vanilla extract. And then I'm going to sift over top 1/2 cup, that's about 60 grams of confectioner's sugar. You might know that as either powdered or icing sugar. And then we sift this because icing sugar does have lumps. And like I said, we want this frosting to be nice and smooth. Okay, so I'm just going to beat that in until it's all mixed together. Okay. Just getting all this cream cheese off of here, because what we're going to do now is switch to the whisk attachment, because we're going to add, like I call it, a secret ingredient to this cream cheese frosting is heavy cream, or heavy whipping cream, you may know it. And that gives this frosting this really nice, creamy, smooth, rich flavor. It's a little different than most cream cheese frostings. Now, what you make sure your cream is cold, and we're using 2/3 of a cup, which is 160 milliliters of heavy cream or heavy whipping cream. You may know it as double cream. And this is cream with about a 35 to 40% butterfat content. And that means that the cream, when you beat it, will whip to stiff peaks. I get a lot of emails saying the frosting is too runny, and it's usually the cause of that is you're not using a heavy enough cream. Because if you use like a single or a light cream, that won't whip up and make it nice and thick. So what I'm going to do is just beat the cream in and have it cold, beat it in gradually, and then just until we get a nice thick spreadable frosting. Sure all that cream cheese is mixed in, and then I'm going to continue to beat it until it's nice and thick and smooth and creamy. Make sure all that cream cheese is mixed in there. As you can see, it's starting to get nice and thick. We don't want any lumps in our frosting. Okay, and that's it. As you can see, it's really nice and thick. This will pipe very well. So, and if you find it's a little runny, you could add a little more cream. If it's too thick, you could add a little cream, just kind of, or sugar, just kind of play with it. So we're going to pipe because red velvet cupcakes need lovely swirls of frosting. I'm using a 1M star tip of Wilton, and I put it on one of these things. Just put that and have your piping bag. Fit it in there. Top. And fold down the sides and just put in your frosting. Now this recipe makes a lot of frosting. If you only want a little frosting on your cupcakes, then half this recipe. But a lot of people like the big swirls, so you need lots of frosting for that. So just put the frosting in and then squeeze it down to the end until you see it come out, the tip, there we go. And make sure all the air is out of your bag and then twist it. And then hold it with one hand, whoops, and then use your other hand as a guide. So I'm just going to do swirls here. And you can make them as big or as small as you want. Just around. If you're new to this, just takes a little practice. You can always scrape it off and put it back in the bag and keep trying. Now, of course, cupcakes are always best the day they were made, but you can cover and refrigerate these for a couple of days. So until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.